Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more overly sarcastic productions, and this time we have a new trope talk, and it's one that I love: cosmic alignments. As long as it's the way I did not read Red's description box at all, so I'm just going in assuming that when we were talking about cosmic alignment, we're talking kind of like uh, not only like how like space stuff like kind of also aligns with then the plot and stuff like that. Like I don't know, a character being born the night of an eclipse, that sort of thing. That's what I'm assuming we're going with here on A Cosmic Element, because that's the shit I fucking love, and actually that's the protagonist of the current story that I have been sending out on queries for the last couple months is a prince who was born the night that a star disappeared, and so from birth he has had this immense expectation upon him because of the circumstances of his birth. Um, you know, right? That sort of thing. I love that kind of shit. That's the kind of fantasy storytelling shit that I really love. But before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. Would love if you join the Discord and follow me over at Twitch. And please do go check out the gaming channel here on YouTube, which is not the same as the gaming channel previously. It is now a new gaming channel with where I will be have edited content on that. Um, Much more edited than stuff on here. It should be funny videos and stuff like that. Upload. I'll probably upload at least once a month. I think I might try for 2 times a month on that channel, but I think I'm gonna give myself a wiggle room and just say once a month for that channel. We'll see how it does. I'm pretty proud of the first video uploaded on there. Had to crack out my editing abilities that I don't really have. I'm proud of myself for that one. I'm not all that good at editing, but I think it's still a good video. Go check it out. I'm very good at advertising myself, as you can tell. The VODs channel is still up. It has just been rebranded to VODs. So link also down below. But check out the new gaming channel. With all that yapping done, let's dive in.
In the grand toolbox of narrative conventions, very few things are better for a writer than a ticking clock. And I don't just mean how deadline stress is a hell of a motivator to kick the creativity brain into overdrive. Narratively speaking, it is very useful for a story to give its characters an in-universe deadline that they have to
Mmm. Going with that for the cosmic alignment, sort of similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender.
accomplish some task in time for, or risk absolute failure on a grand scale. For whatever reason, there's an event permanently locked into the schedule that is pivotal to their success or failure, and if they don't hit the target, they're pretty much screwed. Structurally, this answers several foundational questions, like why do our heroes need to worry about this now, and why can't they slow down and do this smart instead of flinging themselves headfirst into perils they aren't prepared for. A ticking clock with a hard deadline puts the pressure on, automatically raises the stakes of failure, and gives the writer a very clear idea of when and how this story is going to end and what it's going to look like when it does, which you wouldn't think would be a noteworthy benefit.
Which also, one of the things that is very helpful with that is, as she was kind of talking about, she didn't outright say it. Those questions when it comes to like the audience and stuff like that. Um, it helped. This kind of stuff helps immensely with suspension of disbelief. Right, wondering like, oh, why can't the characters, take a break here or take longer here or all that sort of stuff, right? Or why aren't they moving faster? Having the cosmic alignment and knowing exactly when it's going to come, or maybe roughly a good guide as to when it might be, is very useful because it eliminates those questions really. Um, uh, I mean, some of those questions may chop up depending upon how the writer is telling the story, right? Because there could be a situation where character spends some time in this one place, but then the audience may think, well, wait a minute. Based on what the information given, maybe it would be beneficial for them to have stayed there longer to help deal with the problem that will be coming with the cosmic alignment. That's right. That is one potential problem you could run into, when detailing it out. But I think I would rather have that issue of people, uh, looking at the story and kind of thinking more in depth with the story and be like, well, I think actually it would have been more beneficial for our protagonists to be at that place for a longer period of time than where they ended up going for a bit of time in their hopes of trying to find a way to fight whatever's coming, right? That sort of thing. I think that's a much better issue to have of people critiquing and analyzing your work in that way than it is if, say, you do not have the cosmic alignment and people are just like, well, why aren't they spending time there? Um, uh, you don't really want you don't want people asking why things are happening, um, because then that gets into the authorial hand, um, and people thinking about the narrative structure itself. Um, Obviously with caveats. There are some whys that are very good when it comes to storytelling, like when we're talking about characters or why did this character do this thing or whatever. As long as they can then ask those questions and provide try and come up with their own answer from in universe, then it's fine. But if they're asking questions that they cannot answer in universe, um, um, that relates directly to the story that you are telling, then that's something you gotta, try and fucking fix. Um, yeah.
Benefit, but oh man. Oh man. Knowing how a story is going to end is an underrated but crucial writing tool that tells the writer what they're building everything towards, what they're foreshadowing, what they need to plant for their eventual payoff. And while it's not the only thing that a story needs to hold together, we've had a lot of examples in the last decade of stories that had no idea how they were going to end. And a lot of them ended so badly that they retroactively made people hate everything they'd built up beforehand, functionally rendering.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to really think of which one's worse, because both The Rise of Skywalker makes me just like I enjoyed The Last Jedi when it came out. I do have problems with it. I've talked about those before. Um, I don't feel like reiterating them here. Um, but The Rise of Skywalker, and I still don't like. I think The Last Jedi is the best out of the sequel trilogy because it, at the very least, tries something. It actually has an active theme in it. J.J. Abrams' movies, his two, 7 and 9, had no fucking theme. They're just bad. Um, like 7, just Force Awakens is good if J.J. Abrams hadn't decided to retroactively take away everything that Rian Johnson made the decision to do in Episode 8. Like, if he had not tried to course correct decisions made by Rian Johnson, then Episode 7 wouldn't be as bad. But 7 is bad because it reveals that when they were coming up with these questions for the audience to think about, what 9 does is it retroactively ruins it, because now you cannot watch Episode 7 and look for hints and clues because they don't exist. They never existed in the first place. Which is why, honestly, in Episode 8, it feels like such a nice. It's actually, in my opinion, a refreshing twist to have Rey be a nobody, because it's like, you could watch Episode 7 and be like, I'm not getting any hints as to who Rey could be. And then Episode 8 confirms that and is like, yeah, because there's nothing there. Like, that is something new in Star Wars that I personally would have enjoyed to see be explored. But no, Rian Johnson, I mean, J.J. Abrams fucking is like, Palpatine. Don't know how, don't know why, it doesn't make sense, let's do it. And also, our logic behind the threat of Palpatine is fucking stupid. Oh my god. The Game of Thrones, right? Like, I don't know, the sequel trilogy was kind of like, it wasn't really that good. Like, I enjoyed Episode 7, there was hype there. Episode 8 was, like, I still enjoyed it at the time of release, but it wasn't one of those things where I was like, I was I was more so I wasn't excited for episode 9 because of the story being told. I was excited for episode 9 because it was just more Star Wars. Game of Thrones, on the other hand, was a disappointment because it was 9 years of build-up of I'm here for the story. I'm not here for the franchise, right? Because at that time, really, Game of Thrones was just the books and that one show. It wasn't really a franchise. It is a franchise now, but back then I wouldn't really call it one. I do think HBO should have fucking done like when Game of Thrones was at its peak was when they should have released like the first season of of House of the Dragon. Like this, they should have, from a business perspective, they have had horrible timing. Like when Game of Thrones was like season 6, season 7, they should have like been all right. Now here comes House of the Dragon. George R. R. Martin released this book in 2015. The first half of the lore on the Targaryen monarchy. Here's House of the Dragon. They could have released that, like, if they had planned it just right, they could have released it in that gap year we had where we didn't have a season of Game of Thrones because they took like 2 years to make season 8, which I don't know how they took that long to make that trash. Right? So I think Game of Thrones is the overall bigger disappointment because, like, I just can't watch the sequel trilogy just because I just do not like that story being told there. I can't watch Game of Thrones because I'm just so viscerally disappointed by the ending. Like, ugh.
The entire multi-year effort pointless through no fault of the many participants who poured their hearts and souls into making it come alive. Knowing at least the basic shape of a story's finale is a subtle but vital element to effective long-form storytelling, and one very simple way to lock that in from the outset is to give the characters a hard deadline. And deadlines don't get much harder than a good old cosmic alignment. The concept of a cosmic alignment is grounded in the very non-fictional fact of reality that stars, planets, and the moon move in very regular and predictable cycles, and that means there are predictable and calculable times when they overlap, or rather, align. If you're interested in the way real-world cosmic alignments work and feel, I made 2 videos about recent solar eclipses that unpack that in significantly more detail. In the real world, the most striking kind of
Wait a minute, are those narrative videos? I just thought that was her geeking out over stars and stuff.
Cosmic alignment is definitely the solar eclipse, closely followed by the lunar eclipse, which have the advantage of being the only kinds of cosmic alignments you can see clearly without needing a telescope. I've got a little astronomy app on my phone called Star Walk that pings me whenever, like, Venus is close to Pollux, or Jupiter and the moon are gonna look close together or whatever, so trust me when I say that little cosmic alignments are happening basically all the time, but they're usually not all that interesting to look at. Eclipses are the real breadwinners in the cool sky spectacles department, and writers know it because when it comes to fictional cosmic alignments, solar eclipses are far and away the most popular flavor. The concept of a fictional cosmic alignment is simple. 2 or more heavenly bodies have predictable cycles of movement, and somebody has calculated out when they are going to sync up. When that happens, it's going to cause something, almost always something magical. Despite the scientific origins of the concept, cosmic alignments are very rarely used as plot points in sci-fi and generally just feature in fantasy, where it's pretty easy to claim that a couple orbits crossing over is tied in with an ancient prophecy and it's going to have massive consequences for whatever's under it, which is a little harder to justify in the harder side of sci-fi, where the effect of a cosmic alignment generally starts and ends with looking cool. In any case, the cosmic alignment will either cause something or enable an opportunity for the characters to do something, and thus it serves as a hard deadline on the plans for our protagonists, our antagonists, or both. In some more nebulous cases, a cosmic alignment might be tied with the long-term execution of some sort of prophecy, i.e., when the stars align, this ancient force will awaken from its 10,000-year slumber, etc., etc. And since this is a frequent staple of Lovecraftian cosmic horror, the implication is generally, and this will fuck everybody over in an unstoppably horrific way, and as we are but ants, there is naught that can be done but wait with souls adread. But in most cases, it's a much more, like, short-term, actionable thing. The exact details of the cosmic alignment vary
Excuse me, just gonna squeeze in
depending on
here.
the setting. On Earth or in Earth-like settings, it's most common for the cosmic alignment to be an eclipse. Solar eclipses are popular triggers for evil magic that powers up the big bad and are only rarely seen in positive contexts, while lunar eclipses are kind of wild cards. Despite the ominousness of a bright red moon, they're not automatically seen as bad news. Earth-like settings can also have planetary alignments factoring into things. If the setting isn't Earth-like, the possibilities for cosmic alignments become significantly more broad. Non-Earth settings still frequently get solar eclipses just because solar solar eclipses are extremely rad and not a spectacle many writers would willingly deprive themselves of, but you can also get stories where the setting has multiple moons or suns, and a convergence of those bodies can be very significant. There are also stories where the cosmic deadline isn't stellar or planetary at all. Most things that move in space have predictable orbits, including things like comets, and the close approach of a comet can be used to signal all kinds of weird stuff. Specific meteor showers also usually—
Oh, Andor. Andor is so good. Guys, go fucking, if you haven't watched Andor yet, go fucking watch. This is like the most, this scene here that she's showing is like the most beautiful scene in all of fucking Star Wars history. It is a, it's gorgeous. The monologues in Andor are chef's kiss. Amazing. The themes of Andor are so Star Wars. I love it.
peak at consistent and predictable intervals, although that isn't as well known, I've noticed. So a story can use a meteor shower as a cosmic deadline if it wants, but it's kinda rare. The possibilities are pretty much endless, especially if you aren't overly concerned with adhering to the laws of physics. All you need for a cosmic alignment is for 2 or more space objects to snap into a specific arrangement, preferably one that doesn't happen too frequently. And bam! Cosmic alignment o'clock. The primary component of the cosmic alignment plot device is its inevitability. It's literally written in the stars. And while the cool thing about fiction is literally nothing is categorically impossible, it takes an extremely high-power character to alter the course of the heavens themselves. Generally, stopping or altering a cosmic alignment is inconceivably far above our protagonist's pay grades. So whatever the cosmic alignment does is going to happen when it wants to happen. And the only thing the characters can do is prepare for it, find a way to loop it into their plans, or broadly deal with the consequences as best they can. As a side note, you do sometimes get powerful characters, usually villains, causing artificial cosmic alignments, typically fake—
What the fuck has happened to the sun? I don't know why that's just such a funny line to read.
eclipses in service of some kind of eternal night scheme. But weirdly enough, that's a completely separate kind of trope to the cosmic alignment, and is basically just a special effect applied to the big bad's inevitable big plan. A real cosmic alignment happens with or without the input of the characters, and while it may present a unique opportunity for some sort of extremely powerful magic, it cannot be commanded or controlled by any of the characters aiming to harness its potential. Now, this is a pretty flexible structure. One could even argue it's surprisingly vague, and that's for the simple reason that what exactly the cosmic alignment does is completely up to the writer. It is a blank Mad Libs line with the instruction, pencil in the climactic thread of your story here. A cosmic alignment in the real world or in fiction land is an inherently dramatic spectacle that feels unbelievably powerful, and a writer making any sort of fantasy setting can basically justify it causing whatever they want it to. The cosmic alignment might break the seal on an ancient evil, or activate the big bad's massively complicated spell, or open a gateway to another realm, or facilitate the ascension of a monster, or really anything the writer wants it to do. It's a rare, cool-looking event that reminds us of the vastness of the universe and all its wonder. It can do whatever it wants. Just about the only hardline subdivision we can draw is whether the cosmic alignment does something the antagonist wants, or something they don't.
I will issue caution here though. If this is something that you want to do, like if the world you are creating is a world you want to tell multiple stories in, and you want to kind of have, I don't know, let's say a solar eclipse like twice in across stories, be careful with that, just because there will be nerds. I personally wouldn't be one of those nerds that do this, though it might be a question I have in the back of my head, but then I would just kind of like, it's one of those questions that I would be able to just drop and not really think about. It wouldn't ruin my experience of the story. More often than not, I think I would align there. But there will be people that will be like, all right, so hold on. There was a solar eclipse in this story which took place in this year of the world's history, and then there's this story set after, and it takes place in this year. They are going to then do the math as to how often the solar eclipse is, and they will do, and so that may cause issues down the line. So if you want to do multiple like kind of cosmic alignments depending on the cosmic alignment, I think this also goes with lunar eclipses as well. They will figure out the math, and that could cause problems. Where they're like, and not necessarily problems that ruin the story, but they're like the kind of problems that will bother, I would say, most writers, where they're like, oh, shit, I didn't even think of that, that sort of thing. So like, if you want to do lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, maybe try and figure out the rough timeline of how you know, far away, like how many years it has to be for them. Um, I haven't done a solar or lunar eclipse yet. I'm trying to think of how they would play into the magic or into like how the different cultures of my world would like react to them. And since I don't have those questions quite answered to a satisfactory degree for me, I haven't written any of that into any plots yet that I have cooking in my noggin.
For instance, check it off your bingo cards, Avatar's Day of Black Sun is a cosmic alignment, specifically a solar eclipse, unsurprisingly, that is very
I'm
bad for
surprised it took her 6 minutes to expressly talk about Avatar.
Team Bad Guy because it switches off everybody's firebending for a few minutes, making it the prime opportunity to launch an invasion while they can't explode things with their minds. Unfortunately for Team Good Guy, while the rank and file Fire Nation soldiers don't seem to have been informed that their powers are going to stop working when the sun goes bye-bye, Fire Lord Ozai and company are very aware of this and have prepared for the scenario by squirreling him away to a backup secret lair, causing the invasion to fail and basically wiping out our hero's entire army of allies. This is actually an incredibly illustrative example of how meta-narratively useful it is to the writer to have a cosmic deadline, because after the Black Sun invasion fails, our heroes spend several episodes adopting Zuko, side questing, and goofing off, leading to Zuko having a minor breakdown when he realizes they aren't taking the Sozin's Comet deadline seriously, so he has to drop a new cosmic deadline on them right before the finale so they actually get their act together and fight the Fire Lord before he torches the Earth Kingdom. The Comet handily illustrates the other sort of cosmic alignment, namely one that the antagonists want to happen, because while the Day of Black Sun nerfed all the Firebenders, Sozin's Comet is going to buff them for extra damage, making it a very unideal time for our heroes to try to fight them. Or rather, unideal from the perspective of the heroes, but perfect from the writing angle that'll make the final conflict significantly more perilous and exciting than if they just beat the Fire Lord when he couldn't fight back. Which actually leads into a much more broad-scale writing principle that the unsubtlety of the cosmic alignment trope kinda exposes, much like how the corona of the sun only becomes visible when...
But also, one thing, so if we rewind a little bit back to the Day of Black Sun, what that event tells us is it also informs us and helps establish really the threat of Azula and fucking what was his name? Oh no, why am I forgetting Ozai? Why was I blanking on that so hard? It tells us like, you know, it's a small world building thing and it's a world building thing that makes sense, but it does subconsciously tell us our enemies are pretty smart. They are aware of the cosmic shit going on, right? They are, you know, they are dangerous. You know, it just subconsciously helps increase their threat, so to say.
When the moon obscures the disk. I've previously discussed the unspoken plan guarantee, which is the principle that a plan the audience has seen explained on screen is guaranteed to fail, while a plan that the audience hasn't already been told stands a much greater chance of success. It's technically a trope, but it's more of a consequence of some much more deep-seated rules of storytelling, namely that it is boring to see the same thing play out twice. When the unspoken plan guarantee is violated, the end result is the audience sees something they've already had explained, which is redundant and kind of weak in the execution. Similar to that concept, the hidden writing principle that the cosmic alignment reveals is something I like to call the Endgame inevitability. The Endgame inevitability decrees that the villain's complex multi-step plan cannot be thwarted until the very last minute, when it is in its final stages of completion and all preparations have already succeeded. If the villain's plan requires that they collect a whole set of MacGuffins, they will successfully do that, and the hero's attempts to guard or hide them from the villain are guaranteed to fail. If the villain is concealing their full power behind transformations and power limiters, they will not be defeated until they have revealed their final form and probably a secret bonus form after that for good measure. If the villain's plan hinges on the day of the cosmic alignment for its final culmination, they will succeed in every preparatory step and reach the cosmic alignment poised for total victory. The heroes will naturally want to stop the villain before they reach the final stages of their victory and presumably try very hard to do so. But no matter what, whether they aim to destroy the infrastructure supporting the plan, squirrel away one or more mandatory MacGuffins, or just take out the villain before they reach their final form, they are going to fail. The villain will reach their endgame just like they planned, and in the case of a plan that hinges on a cosmic alignment, the endgame inevitability guarantees that the villain's plan cannot be stopped before the alignment and must instead be...
And this is one of those things that I think is why Avatar: The Last Airbender works so well and where Korra kind of stumbles a bit, because the most disliked season of Korra is season 2, when we kind of have a return to this sort of cosmic alignment plot within the narrative. Now, of course, it isn't a cosmic alignment in the sense that we are necessarily talking about here, but it's still in universe. It is, I would call it a cosmic alignment. It's an, it is, the 10,000 years or whatever are coming to a close, and the Avatar cycle has to be renewed. Part of the problems that they ran into with this is one, based upon the world building that we've been given, right? That there has only been one cycle of avatars so far. It has never been started anew before, as far as we are aware. As far as what they have told us, Korra is the first one to do this, so they weren't really able. Of course, if we ignore the production issues that they had, the issues that they were having with Nickelodeon at the time, not really giving them the time to prepare and plot out the show. If we just look at it from the narrative perspective that we are given in universe, just look at it that way. Due to that, I mean, this also gets into the problems of the narrative that they were trying to tell within Korra, in my opinion. Because Korra is the first one doing that, you can't really foreshadow what exactly is going to happen too well. And so like they weren't really able to foreshadow to us in season 2 like what's going to happen, I feel like, too well. Whereas in Avatar The Last Airbender, they tell us there is going to be Sozin's comet is coming up. But there will be a day in which the sun gets blocked out by the moon, in which firebenders will lose their power temporarily. This will happen before Sozin's comet. This is your best day to take out the firebenders, right? Before the big bad day. That is good narrative foreshadowing. That is telling us, really kind of like stuff that's going to happen. It gives us, it gives us a timeline, and stuff like that, and foreshadowing the things to come. Korra did not have that benefit.
Be stopped during or immediately afterwards. And the reason for this is actually very simple. It's more interesting that way. The reason the heroes can't just hide or destroy one of the villain's mandatory MacGuffins is because they become a much more dangerous and interesting threat when they have all of them. The heroes stopping an evil plan before it really gets going is an anticlimax compared to the promised final confrontation, where the heroes must instead desperately struggle against the ultimate foe at the apex of their power. If the villain can conceivably get more threatening, they inevitably will do so. The heroes cannot win before the final battle, because the final battle is what the entire story has been building towards.
Yep.
And therefore, it must be as epic as possible. But at the same time, this is kind of only automatically interesting on paper. If a writer isn't careful, the endgame inevitability can make everything the heroes do before that finale feel completely pointless.
And this is one thing that I'm actually actively struggling with right now, because I'm running a mini campaign for D&D, and for one, the problem is this is a form of narrative that I am not used to telling. This is my first time running a D&D, like D&D sessions. So like this is a form of storytelling that, while I have consumed a good bit of it, it isn't something that I have actively done. And so it's not going the best end. There's a specific thing that is supposed to happen, and I've been trying my best to not have this everything proof shield. But at a certain point, when it comes to certain players doing certain things, I've just kind of been like, I'm tired. This narrative thing is happening, my guy. I'm sorry. Because you can't really, part of the problem though in D&D, and how this is not the same problem that you will run into when it comes to writing, right? This is much easier to avoid when you're actually writing it. At least I think so anyway, because you can actually look back on your writing and like think about the parts where, all right, what here isn't working. In D&D, you kind of, you got to think off the top of your head there. And so I'm not the best at that. I'm someone that I like to think about my ideas for a while, and I'm like, all right, whichever idea sticks with me the longest without me needing to write it down is the idea that I'm going to go with. Because I personally think if it's a good idea, it's going to stick with you. It's not going to flutter away. You can't really do that when you're DMing because you're in the moment. You have to like say something and you're pretty much stuck with that. It's not a form of storytelling that's not my cup of tea. I don't think I could do, like like be a DM storyteller professionally or anything like that. I'm sticking to my books.
Like, the whole story up to that point was a waste of time. They try to stop the bad guy, but the writers will not let them. They try to slow down or cut off the villain's plans, but the writer will make sure the villain is always one step ahead. It's not fair. In the most literal sense, this scenario is contrived to be unfair to the heroes, because watching them struggle is what makes the story interesting. It is a damn good thing fictional characters are tools to tell a good story and not real people with real thoughts and feelings, because otherwise the act of writing would be just about the most unethical thing a person could do. The thing is, the endgame inevitability isn't guaranteed to make the hero's struggles feel fruitless, because protagonist progress isn't a binary. Just because the heroes can't stop the ultimate villain early doesn't mean they can't accomplish other important.
Exactly. You want the heroes to progress in a way, and ideally also like when you have them doing stuff, you still want them to kind of foil the villain's ultimate plan in some way, even if it's minor, right? You still want them to mess it up, somehow. In some manner, you want them to have some sort of effect. And personally, that's kind of the problem that I feel like I'm having with campaign 3 of Critical Role. It feels as though like for one, we haven't been really getting mini arcs in campaign 3 of Critical Role. It's really been the same plot from the beginning. For the most part, it's been fucking Ludin is doing his shit. But also it feels like the things that our heroes have been doing haven't really been like having any effect. Like I personally haven't been feeling that they have been affecting or slowing down lewdness in any meaningful way. So yeah.
Important things. One of the best stories that utilizes a cosmic alignment and the endgame inevitability in relation to it is Fullmetal Alchemist. Also check it off your bingo cards. A story where the villain's ultimate plan hinges on a series of complex preparations building up to the promised day, which turns out to be the day of a total solar eclipse. The plan is very intricate and has several potential points of failure that our heroes try and ultimately fail to exploit, because there's no way they're getting to the finale without having to deal with the big bad plan. But everything the heroes do serves a narrative purpose. Sometimes their actions build towards their own counterplan to mitigate or undo the effects of the promised day. Sometimes they just gather or win over allies, or take out a bad guy that means one less boss fight day of, or go to extremely complicated lengths to avoid being forced to participate in the final evil plan so their morals stay intact. I'm trying not to be too specific here, because Fullmetal Alchemist is the kind of masterpiece of writing that I think everybody should get a chance to experience clean. Previous Trope talks spoiling big chunks of it notwithstanding. But really, if there's one story that I think balances the climactic final showdown promised by the endgame inevitability with the protagonists actually feeling like they're accomplishing meaningful goals along the way, it's this one. And one big reason for that is the main characters have extremely important personal goals they're pursuing for the entire story, and stopping the big bad's evil plan is completely ancillary to that and is basically just an unexpected inconvenience. From minute one and the established premise of the show, the primary thing protagonists Ed and Al care about is getting back the extremely important body parts they lost in an ill-fated attempt to alchemy their mom back to life. Al specifically has the worst of it, having lost his entire body and currently surviving as a soul bound to an empty suit of armor that can kick serious ass in a fight, but also can't eat, sleep, or feel the warmth of human contact. The personal goal of finding some way to get their bodies back provides the story with secondary stakes at every turn. Even if the characters win a victory over Team Bad Guy, it can still feel like they suffered a devastating loss if their current angle of approach to solving the body problem is looking like a dead end. And on the flip side, even if they fail to definitively thwart the big bad's evil plan in some new and clever way, which is pretty much guaranteed due to the endgame inevitability, if they make any progress on their personal goals in the process, it can still make the whole thing feel like a meaningful win. Cosmic alignments, as a trope, have a bit of an aura of vastness to them, which is appropriate enough for anything to do with space. When the great gears of the universe inexorably turn to the stroke of midnight, it's easy for the characters at the center of the story to feel small and powerless. Generally, the turning of the cosmos is a neutral inevitability. It's just a thing that will happen, with or without the input of the characters. Plans and schemes that center on cosmic alignments are usually relatively small-scale machinations when it comes down to it. Petty plans for personal empowerment that take advantage of the opening provided by the stars aligning. While the villains usually get more out of cosmic alignments than the good guys do just by the general rules of underdog heroism, it's not like the bad guys have any more control over them. Thanks to the Endgame inevitability, the bad guys can often feel like unstoppable forces of narrative nature. Because their near victory is the most interesting outcome, they really are unstoppable. Right up until they aren't. When the cosmic alignment comes due and the villain's big plan reaches its ultimate final culmination, that's usually when the uncaring gears of the universe prove once and for all how small and alone they really are. A big bad is never in more danger of being horrendously outclassed than when all their schemes have come to fruition and they have no more power-ups left in the tank. Because even if they harness the cosmic alignment, even if they use it to further their goals to final completion, they cannot control it. And if the good guys successfully hold them off or beat them back until the cosmic alignment is over, then they pretty much instantly lose everything right at the moment that should have been their most profound victory. In tying their plans to something so massively powerful as the turning of the heavens themselves, all they do is reveal how small and weak they really are. It is oddly common for the perpetrators of cosmic alignment schemes to find themselves suddenly facing down entities of godlike power, embodiments of the heavens or the truth or the balance of nature, who absolutely smoke them right when their hubris is at its most extreme. It's a fun reminder that while the Endgame inevitability forces the villain to succeed right up until the finale, the writer is a fickle ally and no friend to the big bad. The aid of the writer is conditional on what makes a better story, a system of wheels within wheels far beyond the comprehension of the characters caught in their gears. A villain is only built up to their highest heights because it makes it that much more fun to watch them fall. So, yeah.
All part of my cunning plan to get as much mileage as possible out of my solar eclipse footage. Oh, that was her footage? Damn, that was good footage. That was Trope Talk, Cosmic Alignments. This was a great Trope Talk. I enjoyed this one a lot. I hope you guys did as well. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.